Hi, it's Brett here from BWCflies, and today we're going to tie the BMS Hammerhead fly. So this is a pattern that we use to search for bream along retaining walls and along tree-lined banks of the local creeks. So I've got my hook in the vise. So we have a 140 denier thread here. So we're just going to lay a nice foundation of thread all the way along. So the olive colour works particularly well in our local area, especially with the glow eyes that we'll use a little bit later. There we go. So we've got that. Okay, a little dollop of super glue. Just there, just to help the bonding of the dumbbells. Okay. So making sure that these are level and square to the hook shank. A couple of nice tight wraps there. A couple of helicopter type wraps to make sure they're nice and secure. And I just want to enhance that foundation of that thread, so I'm just going to do a few more wraps. Okay, there we go. Looking pretty good. Okay, first part is to tie on the tail. So I use hairline STS trilobal dubbing on these flies. The original BMS type product is no longer available, so this is a great substitute, probably the best one that I've found. So I get a nice little clump. I take my thread back here, nice clump like so. I tie it on in the middle and bind it down that way. Then I'm going to fold all of that over and bind it down just like so. Get rid of those straggly bits, those long straggly bits. If you wanted to add a little bit more tail to that, then you certainly could at this point. You can always just get just a little bit more and bind it on. Fold that over and bind it on like so. Okay, that's looking pretty good. The dark olive in this product has a nice, neat little UV fleck to it once you put the light on it, so it's pretty good. So, okay. Next step is to tie in our rib. So I just use some green ultra wire. I put that right up behind those dumbbells there and bind it in. Pretty easy fly to tie, honestly, and the colour combinations that you can do are endless. So, but for us locally, like I said, this dark green just works really well. Okay, time for the bod. So a little bit of a dubbing loop here. I'm just going to form my dubbing loop. So I've got tension on 2 lengths of thread with my finger. I like to put a little bit of wax along that just to help bond the dub. This is Loon High-Tax wax. So it's super sticky. So if that's your thing, then that's your product. Okay, and then into the loop, I am just going to feed in a generous amount of this. Just like so. Okay, so you can see a whole bunch of material inside of that dubbing loop just there. Okay, so I've just popped the dubbing twister tool on. I'm just going to Just going to twist that up. It's like so. You don't have to make it super tight. We're going to brush this out pretty aggressively. So you can move that along a little bit. Just manipulate it a bit with your thumb and forefinger and slide it along the thread. Sorry about that, guys. And then from here, we're going to fill out the body. And in the dubbing loop on this particular fly, I like to put a nice generous amount right up in this little area here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It's nice and full, which is good. One more in behind the eyes. And then I'm going to bring that forward and tie it off just in front of the dumbbell. So a couple of wraps there to secure that loop before I grab my scissors and just trim that out of the way. Alright, so he's gone. Just tie that off a little bit and start to clean this little head up. Tiny little bit, like so. Okay. And with our dubbing brush, before I do the rib on this, I really like to tease this out as much as possible. Through there. Sorry about that, touch the camera again. Really starting to get this material to fluff out, and it's what gives it that translucent kind of appeal in the water. Okay. Alright, now with my wire, I'm simply going to wrap it 3 or 4 times. So you'll capture a fair amount of material. There's 1, 2, 3. I'll drag that up behind the eye and we'll just tie that off to begin with. Just like so, we'll get that out of the way. Clip that wire off with your old scissors or a pair of really small side cutters. That gets rid of that. And with the exposed wire, I just do like to trim it up and then cover it over with my threads. So, just like so. Okay. Time once again for the dubbing brush to come back out and do its job. So I really want to pull that material out. This is a pretty aggressive brush, this one. This is the Loon Outdoors dubbing brush. So for the hard work, this one, the bristles on this are really stiff. Okay. Start to manipulate that a little bit. Get some of these ones out from up here. There we go. They're starting to pull out from underneath of that wire now. The wire just gives that nice little rib and a nice little bit of fleck through the body. There we go. Starting to take shape. That's looking good. Alrighty. At this point, sometimes I like to fill in this little area right here, right above the dumbbells. So I'm going to get a little bit more of the dubbing material. And in the same way that we did the tail, just going to put in a small amount, tie it down, fold it back. And start to form up that little head. It's a pretty wiry kind of dubbing, so you may actually end up with a few stragglers kicking around the front, but we can get rid of those in a second. Okay. Time for a whip finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it tight underneath the dumbbell and we'll go again. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Pull it tight and we'll clip that off. Just like so. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. Not too many straggly fibres over the front of the fly either. So a little bit of resin just to finish the head off. This is Colourways bone dry. Really neat product for the smaller flies. Bit of a drop in there in between the dumbbells. Let that really soak in. There we go. Okay. Cure that with a UV torch. You might be able to see those eyes glow up a little bit, and you may be able to see a little bit of UV response in that material. I can see it. You know, I can see that little purple blue hue to the product. And then just to finish it off, there is a couple of stragglers right on the front. So I'm just going to tidy them up with a cautery tool. There we go, we'll just burn them off, just like so. There's one there, make sure that that eye is nice and clean for your loop knot attachment. And there we go. That's one completed BMS Hammerhead. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time.